when there was a time in this country, a long time ago, when reading wasn't just for fags, and neither was writing. People wrote books and movies that had stories, so you cared whose ass it was and why it was burning, and I believe that time can come again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Think Liberty podcast. This is episode 52, and I'll be your host.
Like, you can do whatever you want. You can shoot somebody in the face because they looked at you funny.
That clip's never going to get old. So joining me on this episode, we've got friend and regular, Lonie Dupre. Lonie, how you doing today, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And joining us as well as Lonie is a host of a Shitlord Preachers podcast, which you can hear her on the Think Liberty Network. I believe it's released on Fridays. That's Amos Joseph. Did I get the day right? Is it Fridays, Amos?
Fridays. We record on Mondays, though, so...
Yeah, if anyone wants to catch the stream of that, you can find them on YouTube, and I'll let Amos go ahead and drop the name of where to find it on YouTube, but you guys stream on Mondays, yeah.
Yep, we stream on Mondays, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and you can check us out by basically searching Shitlord Preachers. We usually go about an hour and a half, and then the audio version of that goes up on the Think Liberty Network on Fridays.
That's pretty early here in communist California. You know, commie time.
People's Republic.
All right, the Democratic People's Republic. Yes, indeed. With His Highness Moonbeam himself. How are you guys doing? How was your weekends? Sometimes we start out by asking. We've only got a couple people in here, so I'll start with Lonie. Lonie, how was your weekend? Anything interesting to talk about, bud? All right.
Okay. Well, no. No. I lost at cornhole on Thanksgiving. Yes, we play cornhole because my brother decided that was going to be a tradition. So that's what we do.
Fantastic.
I lost, but the food was good. I mean, I just had like Thanksgiving stuff.
You are one pathetic loser.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't go Black Friday shopping or anything, but there was a video of a fight that originated from our Walmart, so that was cool.
Oh, nice. What was it over?
They were fighting over TVs.
I feel like it's always over TVs, yeah.
The $100, they were like 40-inch 1080p TVs. They were like $100 or something like that.
That's pretty good. That's almost worth fighting over.
They were just climbing all over them, and had a guy running away with like two of them like in his arms, and people like on the floor, like kids being dragged out of the way. But we were like, man, this is crazy. And then we recognized the guy that pushes the carts.
Was he in there? Was he in the fray?
Yeah.
Like in the melee?
No.
Melee?
This is just this guy that he's been working there for like 10, 15 years at least that I can remember. It's just this old guy, long hair, always in like a ponytail or something like that, beard, and he just like walks by without even looking at him like, yep,
another day
I'm not
at the
getting
office.
involved in that at all.
Yeah.
Yep. He just walked on by just like nothing.
Fantastic.
This is the world ANCAPs want.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's crazy. I feel like I haven't heard as much about Black Friday getting crazy, but I did do a YouTube search, and I went and I looked to see what was going on here on this Black Friday. And sure enough, there was some throwing down. It wasn't anything insane like you saw when this whole kind of thing started, but yeah, there was people throwing down. I saw a girl had another woman in a some kind of headlock. I'm not sure what it was over, but yeah, good times. Good times. I went Black Friday shopping myself, but I go the Friday afternoon. So I'm missing out on $100 TVs, but it's pretty good to get stuff at a discount for the kids for Christmas. I don't hate it.
You get to see all the blood on the walls,
Right?
the teeth getting knocked out, and all that.
Yeah, all the spots where the fires were started. It's pretty nice. How about you, Amos? Anything interesting over the weekend, over the holiday?
Holiday, yes. Thursday, I actually, since my family actually was doing Thanksgiving today, instead of on Thursday, I worked a half day. So, got a little extra money doing that.
There you go. Why the late Thanksgiving? Someone's schedule just works out to it's better.
Yeah, some sort of scheduling. Bunch of people decided to do Thanksgiving at friends and
all the important people in their life.
Yeah, like my aunt and uncle and their family went with some friends. My brother went with his friend, and then my sister went to her boyfriend's house while I was working, and I ordered pizza for dinner. So it was a really fun Thanksgiving day. But today was pretty good too when we had our Thanksgiving. So,
man, they're just really throwing you under the bus there, huh?
Exactly.
But you know what, Amos? You can have pizza. We'll get back to you on Sunday.
Exactly.
Any Black Friday shopping for you, or did you?
No, I was definitely tempted. There was definitely deals in the mail and deals on the internet. I mean, the only things I guess closest that I got to Black Friday, which wasn't really Black Friday, was just more equipment for the podcast. But I was, tempted. Like, what if I got a second monitor? So I could do like dual monitors on the computer or something, or
that is
get
nice.
Something else or the other. Yeah, but that just seemed a little vain at that point. Like, no, I'm going to do this, and then in the end, I'll be like, maybe not.
It does take. It's hard to justify those extra expenses, but they're so nice. I have like a really big monitor, so I don't really need the second one, but. Before I got the big, I do prefer to have the two. I have two at work. I do enjoy it. It is nice.
You could definitely be productive if you're watching, Netflix on one screen and editing video on the other.
I actually do that. It's nice when I'm working. I'll pull up like if there's like a football game on. I have like the internet TV, so I'll pull up Hulu Live or Sling or something, and it's nice to be able to like watch a football game while you're editing a podcast or video or something like that. Certainly doesn't suck. Okay, all right. I have. All right. So I've got some stuff we want to talk about on this episode. So first and foremost, I want to get to something. What I think by the time this episode airs on Tuesday, this will probably have been something that's been talked about quite a bit. I mean, it's already something that's been talked about quite a bit, at least in libertarian land. But figured we'd go over it anyway. So I have a clip here I have to play. It's relatively short, only about 20 seconds, and then we can get into the discussion about it. You may have heard about it. This is the missionary that was shot down by the tribe in an island off of India. And we'll go ahead and roll the clip.
Police in India say they've recovered the body of an American who was killed by an isolated island tribe that is known for attacking outsiders. 7 fishermen were arrested for helping the tourists get to the island, which is heavily restricted by the Indian government. The tribe lives on the island alone and throws spears and stones at outsiders. The investigation is ongoing.
Now, I love the that's nice.
Interesting. That just, happens. So
great segue. So this has been an interesting one to see people talking about it. Anyone want to get started on this topic, or should I just kind of rip into it?
So I actually was watching. It's funny. Now this is of course taken from Joe Rogan, but I listened to his podcast and he was talking to one of his guests on there talking about it. And from what they gathered, there was this story about a gentleman who actually went to this island. Mm-hmm. There have been encounters in the past.
Yeah.
People going there. And he said there was some encounter in the past, like basically like the 1890s. Some guy went out there and basically like spent time with these people. and was performing like just taking measurements, like their height, their width, just like as people trying to study them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was to the point that it actually got a little bit creepy. Like he was like just like taking, as Joe Rogan was putting it, just weird stuff. This guy was measuring like the men's penis length and whatever, like just weird stuff. The guy was a little too in depth, and also
too personal.
being an a little too personal there. So, but then what he had also done was, as a result of approaching an isolated island, being someone like himself, and from the outside, brought some germs, killed off a bunch of people. So, because of that, they believe that it's only natural that now the people basically will perceive, white people, any white individual approaching the island as a danger. Simply because every time a white person came, some disease came with them.
Is it just white people, or is it this point, or is it just pretty much like anyone who's going to come to visit the island who is not a part of the island?
I mean,
who else?
Right? Who else is going to?
I mean, simply, yeah. Outside, I mean, removing the racial equation for a second, but then again, you realize every encounter has been a white person.
Lonnie, you get a good point there. Like, who else is going to do that? You don't really hear a lot of news stories.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, the Indians actually make it illegal to go there.
Right.
Yeah, because the Indians, the government just like, you know what, there's nothing we can do. Every time we've tried to, we get attacked. Just don't go there. Like, that's their policy. Just don't go. We're going to leave them alone. That's their policy. Just don't go.
Just forget it.
We don't go. We gave up. Just give up and just don't show up to their island, and you won't die or whatever. And people try to go. People try to fly drones over it. The drones get shot at. This is my thought. You knew going in that these people do not welcome you, and they will attack you. And
he's backed up by the power of the Lord.
You're canoeing yourself over there, and you're like, I'm just going to go talk to them. No, it's not going to work, no matter what reason you have. And yeah, like I said, who else? Oh, only white people do this kind of stuff. Like
right. Exploring haunted
only
houses.
White people,
visiting
only
islands,
white people get attacked by sharks. Only white people get mauled by bears. I mean, they got to learn. So,
well, I do think it's kind of funny that most other folks just would rather leave well enough alone. They're not so interested in exploring the haunted house or spending the night with bears or doing any of those crazy things. It's a fair point. So, do you have any experience with this kind of stuff, Amos, as a former preacher? Did you ever do any of that missionary stuff?
Yeah, we definitely did. Definitely met up with some. I've been to third world countries. Been to I've been to pretty much any church from like your typical American mega church, all the way down to a church built with sticks. Run by car batteries in a mountain that takes an hour to drive to on a single car width kind of path.
So what
if you drive? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I guess I'm just curious. Like, what exactly do you do in that scenario? Like, I mean,
meeting with these people.
Yeah, like I understand why this guy went to this island, right? And he was trying to convert them. So like, what is the deal with this? Like, you go there, you go to the other church, they help you get the stuff you need to go talk to people that aren't a part of the church, or you just go to a church filled with people that already believe in what you believe, and you're like, hey, I'm just like you guys, but I got way more money. So how exactly does that work?
It's sometimes it's to, most of the time when you're going to these villages, you're kind of offering something they probably don't have. Maybe it's some sort of a message. So, for what we have preached, that was definitely different. We brought it to a village to talk to this church that was actually we were in Thailand, deep in the mountains, and there was a church that was actually rebuilt after being burned down by Buddhists, surprisingly. And
wait, what?
Whoa!
Church
was no.
It's just burned down. You don't get to
Buddhists are the most peaceful people on the planet.
Who gets their church burnt down by Buddhists? Explain here a little. What happened?
How much? How can you possibly anger a Buddhist so much that they'll come and burn down your church?
I think I personally believe every religion is capable of violence. You definitely have, if you look as a general trend, certain religions are definitely more violent or less violent than others. But, you get into some areas where it's religiously homogenous, as we'll say. You kind of get a little bit of violence thrown at you if you're not one of the rest. To my understanding, Thailand was 99% Buddhist, with 0.7% Muslim, and then 0.3% is a mix between Christians and traditional folk religions. So super minority there. And you're the one church that's deep in the mountains where people are making not even a few pennies on the day, and burn that church down.
So what was your thing? What did you go out there to that church to do exactly?
We went out there to kind of a woo-woo church, I guess, if you were really, for people to understand, kind of the Pentecostal, charismatic kind of
woo-woo church. I'm going to smack you in the forehead and save you.
Not quite that violent, but laying hands, praying for people and stuff, preaching messages on the more let's say more radical parts of Christian belief, the more supernatural aspects, metaphysical kind of stuff.
And for people that aren't familiar, the Pentecostals. Keep me honest here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Amos, but the Pentecostals are the ones that you see usually depicted on TV in the movies.
Usually,
way over the top.
Your televangelist is usually having a strong sort of charismatic Pentecostal background. Just a lot of the whole quote unquote getting filled with the Holy Spirit, dancing, laughing, healing, just all that stuff.
People in wheelchairs standing up.
Yeah. I mean,
walk for the first
time.
To be
just full disclosure, I was actually someone who went out there to train people in what is commonly referred to as faith healing. So we'd go out to these villages. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Definitely come a long way, we'll say.
Yeah.
So we'd go out there, and we actually had two translators with us, because we had to. So we'd preach a 15-minute message that took 45 minutes to get through. Because we had to speak in English to get translated into Thai, to then get translated into the local language that wasn't Thai.
Sounds efficient.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. So like I said, 15 minutes to crunch in, all right, we're going to pray for each other and miracles going to be happening and stuff. And, yeah.
So, well, what's all this about faith healing? What are you, are you really kind of teaching them, how to, so what are you teaching them? What exactly are you guys going over with that?
You kind of use references to you reference scriptures in the Bible where how Jesus approached, laying hands on the sick, seeing them recover, stuff like that. You refer to scriptures that talk about sort of the. for us, it'd be like, for us to understand the freedoms that are protected by the Constitution, we look at we read the Constitution, we'll read amendments, such. So in the same way, they believed, sort of their spiritual laws, so to speak. So you read the Bible to kind of find, okay, how did Jesus do it? What did this guy talk about it? So on and so forth. And you like try to apply it and you tinker with it, and people saw miracles and stuff. I mean, yeah.
Did they though? Did they?
That's kind of the agnostic side of me. Like, I saw things and felt things, but now I look back, it's like, did I really though? Was it all just whatever? There's definitely a lot of.
It's more than a little convenient that the frequency of miracles has gone down since the invention of the camera.
Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, the whole thing with well, if there's so many miracles happening on TV, why don't they go clear out hospitals? And
I mean, it's a good question.
Oh, it is definitely a very good question. And some of us actually tried going into hospitals, but if you weren't like officially some sort of chaplain that was approved by the hospital, most of the time you can't get in.
I would assume doctors would not be so cool with that.
Well, they don't mind if you go in there just to like pray for people who
trying to make a living here,
right? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean we didn't really, do anything for the money. I mean the ministry work that I was with was doing it for the money, and I could go down that path too. I was definitely in, being so deep in it that it was borderlining on a cult. So, now that this podcast is going in this direction and everyone's curious.
Well, I mean, we gotta ask. I just think it's fascinating, right? Like you go somewhere and you talk about faith healing. To me, it'd be hard to have those conversations. It's like, what do you do when someone says, like, have you ever healed anybody? I don't know how I would answer that. I guess it all just depends on what you've experienced and what you've done.
Yeah, and it's tough to really reconcile, like, when you're in that mindset and you see what you're perceiving what you're perceiving, and people are telling you what's going on. You're trying to gauge results, and
sure,
you think you're having,
So I guess you weren't doing the kind of stuff like, like laying hands and the guy in the wheelchair gets up and he can walk for the first time in 10 years.
No, I mean, it was, like for me personally, I actually started like I did this in high school. I would approach classmates who were athletes like myself. And, if they got injured or something, I'd try to like pray for them and stuff. And, it was awkward.
I can imagine.
But it was, and there were even a couple, I started being called like the preacher in my class.
I guess there's worse names you could become. When it really comes down.
Yeah.
It's not so bad.
So it kind of went from that to kind of having it was heavily influenced by the fact that my father had a chronic disease and was pursuing different, pretty much all the ways you could try to get cured, and got into like the faith healing aspect, and that kind of drove me to get into it, and then down the ministry path basically. So
okay, well, hey, fair enough. All right. So let's that was interesting. Thank you, Amos. So let's get back to what was going on. The initial topic here.
So don't go to any islands where the natives aren't welcoming of you and they're going to shoot you with arrows.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that you can take from it. Certainly. It's an odd discussion. Now, a lot of people talk about this situation. Sorry, I'm sorry for our listeners. We did kind of go down a little rabbit hole there. I'm sorry, Amos. It's not every day that we get to bend the ear of a preacher or a former preacher and ask those kind of questions. So I guess talking about the
definitely got to do an episode about it at some point.
Yeah. Well, clearly it's something that we can venture off into pretty easily without even trying. So, but that was fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us. But yeah, so one of the things I was noticing is a lot of times with this topic, when it comes with these folks on this island and this missionary guy, people tend to look at it as like borders are always a hot topic, and people equate this with the border discussion. Do you guys think that there are similarities there between this situation and some of the discussions that happen surrounding borders?
I mean, if anything, those islanders have definitely have incorporated the ANCAP idea towards borders, private property. It's their island. So they defended their island.
Right. Yeah. Well, that they did. That they certainly did. Lonnie, how about you?
I mean, if you're so bent on keeping outsiders out that you kill anyone that even comes close to you, like 100 feet out in the water trying to get to your place, I mean, that's yours. I'd say that's yours. And you can kind of just do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I answered that right.
No, I mean, it's your 2 cents, and that's good. I think it's one of those things where it's just like, it's tough. I think most people would say that like the situation of the borders in the United States is like a unjust acquisition, right? Like they don't have legit control over border territory, and people aren't fond of that. It's just odd, and you see the same people that are pretty quick to talk about open borders. Also, as the same people that are like, "Yeah, man, that guy got what he had coming." I found that kind of funny.
Yeah, that I thought was kind of interesting, And what's kind of funny is coming from a lot of these libertarians that they're so open-minded and so accepting of other people and their beliefs and stuff like that, and and they're giving this guy crap because he was a Christian, and at the same time shitting on Christians throughout their whole thing, and it's like, man, this is just all kinds of messed up,
Yeah, it's a rough situation for sure. Like I can't really relate to the guy. There's nothing in me that has any desire to go and do anything like he did. But I'd be lying if I said, I mean, it's like, you could tell he was coming from a good place. I don't think he was going there with any ill intent.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, I mean, he did what he
thought was
he
right.
believed was right. And I'm sure everyone told him, hey, man, that's a bad idea.
Don't do that. Yeah.
You're either going to die or you're going to be seriously injured and you're going to have to come back. And he didn't listen. And, well, I mean...
And the dead part happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like... It's kind of like, say there's a pride of lions. And you're like, I'm going to go pet the lions. And everyone's like, hey, man, don't go pet the lions. And you're like, I'm going to go pet the lions. And they're like, bruh, you probably shouldn't go pet those lions, man.
Might get eaten by a lion.
Yeah. Tourist gets eaten by lion pride, on safari in Africa. And it's like, well, I mean, is anyone really surprised?
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up approaching a pride of lions when there's an actual story in the Bible of a prophet who was thrown into a den of lions and survived. So
yeah, but that's a story.
I know what you're getting. I'm just saying, it's just funny you said that.
Kind of like the guy that survived for 3 days in the belly of a whale. It's like, well, he would have been eaten up by the acids.
If anything, you're looking at a guy that is feeling that he feels and believes that these people are quote unquote lost. So he feels it's his mission, or to kind of,
Oh yeah, I get
reach for the stars and try to reach the most unreachable people on the planet, if anything.
Yeah, no, totally.
If he makes it, he's a hero, and if he doesn't make it, he goes to heaven if he's dead. It's a win-win in his mind.
I don't know. Who do you think he would have had better luck with, that tribe or, say, like a third-wave feminist?
Ooh.
Probably the feminists. I mean,
yeah,
he probably wouldn't have died. I would at least imagine.
I don't know.
I don't know if feminists have that high of body count, but I could be wrong. All right. Well, we'll jump to a new topic. So, on that note, I have another sound clip here. This came about just recently. For anyone that hasn't heard, instead of introducing it, I am just going to roll the clip.
As desperate migrants rushed the San Ysidro point of entry in California, U.S. Border Patrol agents fired tear gas in an attempt to keep the migrants out. Some mothers seen crying and holding their children as they hid from the tear gas.
Ya los rebasaron nuevamente.
Video from the scene shows the hundreds of migrants overwhelming several blockades set up by local and federal authorities. The U.S. government shutting down the busiest border crossing on our southern border in response, leaving some stranded.
They stopped my car and had me turn around. They escorted me and had me make a U-turn.
People were turned away at both pedestrian and vehicle crossings.
Both sides is closed. Freeways, 805, 5 southbound is closed. The gates, everything is closed, shut down.
In recent days, thousands of migrants looking to apply for asylum have been living in a sports complex in Tijuana near the San Ysidro border crossing. This is a boiling point in the escalating tensions between the migrants and the U.S. government. President Trump had tweeted a day prior to the incident, "We only will allow those who come into our country legally. Other than that, our very strong policy is catch and detain, no releasing into the U.S." But the migrants clearly were undeterred.
I saw the helicopters. They were finishing with the tear gas. It was very scary. I mean, I just, I cross often, and this is the first time I've just been so afraid.
Now some 59.
All right, so that's that clip. Boy, how do you guys feel about this one?
Again, if you're approaching someplace that clearly is willing to take violent action against you to keep you out of there, I mean, you should probably try something else. I mean,
yeah, this is a weird one. I certainly see where you're coming from, Lonnie, and what's odd to me is that oftentimes, and even the reporter mentioned it on his bit. I think everyone always has to bring up the kids and show pictures of the kids, and this, that, and the other, and oftentimes the side that's not letting the families in is the side that's demonized, and without saying that, this side's worse than the other, and this is the right thing, and this is the wrong thing.
And aside from the obvious, which is clearly, if it was easier for people to get this done, then you probably wouldn't have, so many people trying their best to just kind of push at the border and hop fences and things like that. And you probably wouldn't need to send the military or feel like you had to. And when I say get things done and make it easier to get things done, I'm talking about people who are coming to the country for whatever reason or another, that are trying to earn citizenship, clearing the way to make that not such a painful and just bureaucratic mess of a process. If the process wasn't as clogged up and difficult, people probably wouldn't be so incentivized to just try and find ways around it. Desperate people looking for solutions aren't exactly the first ones that want to sit around and wait for paperwork to clear. However, all of that aside,
well, I'm just curious as to how come it's very rare that you ever hear in the discussion, why would parents bring their children into that kind of chaos?
And when I say discussion, I mean like the popular narrative. You might hear this on Facebook or talking amongst your friends, but never in the news.
Right. It's not as if they didn't know that something was going to go down as a result of approaching the border.
Right. It's like I don't necessarily agree with the actions taken. I find them similar to the tribe on the island, whatever tribe, I forget what they're called actually, but and you know, I think the actions are kind of similar. I don't necessarily agree with them. However, I mean, I don't know. It's just, how did you not know this was going to happen? And they've been talking about it like, hey, we're not letting you in. We're going to make sure you stay out. Bet. You know? I mean...
It's funny how, the media was jumping on Trump because he called this migrant caravan an invasion, I guess. So the media is kind of trying to double down their position. Oh, he's crazy. How can he call this an invasion? And then you hear in this news clip, the migrants were rushing the border. It's like, that seems a little hasty, I mean, if you're not...
It sounds a little invadey.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, we definitely don't use medieval war tactics anymore, but rushing usually means battle or invasion or something. You're rushing it. So, not to say that they're not to say it is an invasion, but it's like both sides aren't really helping their position.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, these if these are the Hondurans, or I believe those Hondurans, if this is the same migrant caravan, these people were offered asylum by Mexico. They didn't want it.
From what I heard,
I think it's a stunt. What have these people been eating? Or who's paying for their food?
I was just going to touch on that.
Please do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. But basically, I don't know if you guys saw that there was footage of some of these towns that they went through. These migrant caravans basically went through, cities and just, towns that they basically came across. And I guess people were feeding them, at stops they made. And they would leave the streets of these cities they went through completely trashed. In some cases, they didn't even finish their food. They just kind of went through areas with a mess in their wake, so to speak. And like Vinny was saying, like, why would you subject children to such an environment? I mean, with the concerns with human trafficking, you start to wonder.
Right. Well, and that there's troops at the border, or at least there's a suboptimal situation for children going down at the border. So I'm just curious at what point, if I, let's put it this way. So if I brought my 3-year-old to a Slayer concert and got in the mosh pit with him and something happened to him, that would fall on me quite a bit, I believe, right? I took my kid to a situation that I knew was going to be pretty chaotic. And if something happened to that child, I would likely hear about it. It's just interesting to me that you turn around and you see people that are in support of the islanders, taking down a Christian missionary, are the same people that are saying that what's going on at our border is terrible. So it's just been a fascinating discussion to watch, I guess, without saying too much about where I land on it. I guess it's just interesting to me. And it's also interesting too, because you see like a lot of ANCAPs are defending the islanders, which is perfectly fine. But these are like the same people. If you see these arguments between like the ANCAPs and other ideologies, and they're like, oh, so you're just gonna kill someone if they step on your lawn? which is kind of what happened here with the island.
That's like some radical castle doctrine.
Right. They just came on up and they got mowed on down. But
kill the mailman because he came too close to my door.
Yeah. Yes. And I understand that there's nuance and there's differences, but I guess it's just it really is a fascinating topic when you talk about the timing of the political environment right now and everything that's going on, because I think it's related in some sense, at least the discussion is a little bit, as it relates to what's going on. And then just, days later we have this headline, tear gas getting fired at immigrants on the border. What a time to be alive.
Then you see like these more liberal, progressive types, they're upset about it, and they're like, well, these people are coming, and who's going to clean our toilets? Who is going to dig trash out of the ditches? And it's like, geez, like, wow. So that's what you think of us. By the way, I'm Mexican. So it's like, so that's what you think of us. Like, we're just for picking vegetables and cleaning toilets and I don't know, other tasks that people don't want to do. Like, that's what we're good for. Like, thanks.
Right. Like, why is the conversation never about like these these are future entrepreneurs here, captains of industry? They're like, nah, who else is going to pick strawberries and clean turds? Wait a minute.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, my great grandparents, they came. It was more. I want to say in like some sort of. There were actual refugees. Like, I want to say that there was some sort of political something or other, or perhaps a overthrow of government. I don't know what it was. I don't even know the story or the timeline, actually. But they were actually refugees in a sense. They applied for all of the right things. There was a mass migration of sorts. But that was a completely different type of situation. These are people that are just like, yeah, we're coming. Well, you're not invited. Yeah, well, we're coming anyway.
We're headed out. Well, and then like, I don't know if you guys heard, but like, shortly after, I don't even know what the status is of this. I heard about it briefly. But there was like another caravan that was headed over that wasn't quite as innocent as the first that I had heard about. And I think it's something that people should consider in this discussion is like, what kind of precedent, it would set to say like, yeah, everyone come on in, my issue. And we talked a bit offline with this, and I think Amos and I tend to have, and Lonnie, if I'm not mistaken, we have a pretty, similar view on this as well. It's like if you were going to peel back the government, this would probably be one of the last things that I would want to peel back, and it's because I really wouldn't want to mess with the borders too much until the foreign intervention were stopped and the welfare state.
Foreign intervention's got to go first.
Yeah,
that's the first thing. Then there's all the bureaucracy and so on and so forth. Then along the lines, second to last thing is welfare, because you want to make sure that there's actual private solutions set up before you just pull the rug out from under people, and welfare is the last thing, second to last thing to go. I mean, that's not exactly the worst thing to keep around, and then the border, that's what defines the outline of the country that is being dissolved into Ancapistan.
Sure.
So,
yeah. And people are going to say that it has, like I said before, right? It's the fact that it's, that's the word for it. It's unjustly acquired land, right? So,
yeah, you got people that want to, open it up tomorrow, and you bring up like the foreign intervention and other meddlings and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, what about all the people that hate us that could just walk in, that we're trying our best to keep out now, that people that are actually trying to do harm.
Yeah.
They have like a let the chips fall where they may kind of attitude. And it's like, look, I mean, I got a kid, I got family, I have friends, and I highly doubt anything's going to happen in South Louisiana. But, I mean, there are other places that could be affected, and, just willy-nilly just letting just anyone just show up. I mean, that's not a great idea.
While we're starting so much shit all across the globe.
Right.
I totally agree. Like I've said on the podcast before, you don't leave your drawbridge down when you're at war with, more than half the kingdom. It's probably not wise. May not be the best idea you've ever had.
Yeah, because, you do have people that are actively trying to harm, people in the United States itself. And it's our fault, but, then all of a sudden one day they're like, hey guys, we can just go. We can just walk right across, or we can just fly in, and it's all good.
Well, what's fascinating too is
you're not even going to check our bags. Like, it's cool.
So, right. What's interesting is you've got, I said that weird. What's interesting is you've got, I don't know if you've ever read For a New Liberty, either of you guys, but, Rothbard in there.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yeah, but in there, Rothbard talks about, the whole idea of the anarcho-capitalist philosophy that he put together was based on the premise that most people enjoy the lives that they experience these days. It's just that he feels, and a lot of other people feel, present company included, that the lives that they appreciate could be made better if the state would kind of get out of the way with some stuff. Now, some people would also, I can't talk tonight. Some people would also make the argument that it's due to the state that some of the things that people enjoy are able to be enjoyed. And I think the discussion about this is kind of falls somewhere between those things, right? Where it's a matter of actually, just kind of asking yourself the question, right? Like, it's that kind of like that Rothbard button question. Like, if it all just blew up today, or if you took anything down, or if you had no particular order, right? And you decided, let's pull this thing down, but we're going to keep, while these other apparatuses are in place, would it result into what Rothbard essentially talked about, which is people enjoying, more of what they've come to love? Or would what people have come to enjoy change into something that they wouldn't? I don't know the answer.
I'm kind of thinking it would be the latter. I'm leaning more towards it would be the latter.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know, but it's just one of those things that, if you, in your personal life, let's just say, if you go around, pissing everyone in your town off, picking fights with people at grocery stores and fast food restaurants and, wherever, and, then you're just like, yeah, and my door is unlocked. And you just go and go to bed with your door unlocked.
Right.
And yeah, of course, the U.S., it's not private property, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I've heard it all before. But
blowback doesn't just pertain to governments, right? Like,
right.
Blowback is a concept that can be broken down to individuals as well. I think that's fair.
If you apply the same concept, we as a collective, for lack of a better word, have been picking fights in fast food restaurants and grocery stores, and, we're locking our doors because we know that we're annoying a lot of people and they probably want to hurt us. Wouldn't be a good idea to leave that door unlocked.
Right.
Until you change your life and stop picking fights with everyone and, ruining marriages, setting up somebody's wife with another man, little metaphor for a regime change, an overthrow of a government.
Ooh, clever.
Yeah. It's, if you're a mentally drama creating person, people don't like you, and they probably want to punch you in the face.
Right. Well, and if you're stealing, and at a very basic level, right? Like if you're going out there stealing from people, you might get stolen from. And I think that's probably fair to say. So you probably shouldn't steal.
Yeah, and I know, like, I hate the U.S. government and all governments as much as the next person that hates the U.S. government and all governments. But at the same time, I live here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point too when you said, like, I got kids. I feel like people miss that part, I guess. Maybe I'm playing it too hard, but like I have kids too. Like the last thing I would want, like I do want a change, but I don't want to change because I want to see everything, blow up and get set on fire, right? I want to change because I really honestly think that a freed market is going to be a lot more beneficial to people who are having trouble, getting over these bumps that keep them down. And I think that the state gives a lot of resistance toward people getting free of that kind of stuff, right? Like you would probably see a lot more people trying to be entrepreneurial if it didn't cost if there wasn't such like a barrier to entry as far as cost into getting into some of those things with occupational licensing or how much it costs and all the paperwork you have to go through to set up a business license,
Yeah, I'm going through all that right now with a business I'm setting up.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hoops you got to jump through.
And a lot of people don't have that money before, like it's one of those positions where you need the business going to get the money, right? But you need the money to get the business going.
Yeah.
So it just kind of leaves you stuck, right? And so that's why I advocate what I advocate and I support what I support. But I wouldn't want to see anything just blow up and go to shit just for the sake of like, yeah, fuck the government, cool. Now everything sucks. All these people.
Yeah. I mean, there is, I'm sure this is going to trigger some listeners, but there is some advantages to having a government right now. One of them being we don't have terrorists just walking in and just RPGing like everything.
You sit on a throne
because we blew up their brother 10 years ago.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's tough. It's one of those things that's tough because we don't know if there aren't a lot of terrorists coming to the States because they're getting caught by anti-terrorist efforts, and we don't know if there aren't a lot of terrorists coming to the States because it just doesn't happen much. It's hard to say, but one thing that is for sure,
there's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, and one thing we know that is for sure is we probably created more terrorism than would have been by foreign occupation and dropping bombs all over the Middle East. I'm sure.
It's like well, I mean, America's been doing all this stuff wrong. I mean, it deserves. It's like, hold on now, I am America. I'm in America. I don't deserve this.
Right.
Yeah,
this is accurate. So maybe switching gears. Before we switch gears, Amos, is there anything you wanted to say on this before we moved on?
I mean, well, the question comes on to, I mean, what is the proper course of action? I mean, if we are advocating for a border for the sake of, just the world we're in, we definitely need borders. Are we basically saying libertarians should support a wall? I'm just kidding.
I mean, if they're paying enough for people to go put it up, I mean,
you are fake news.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'll abandon my business right now. If they're paying like $30 an hour or something.
I would be happy with
benefits.
the solution of leaving it up to the states who had the border. I think that's probably a better step in a direction. I really have.
We need to get a GoFundMe going.
For what exactly?
For the wall.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, no,
I think it's like minimum is $30 billion. So
that should be easy.
Yeah, I mean, if Texas wants to put up, something, then let Texas do that.
I feel like don't you feel like maybe Texas knows a little bit more about what's going on in that border than Wyoming?
I think so.
Or
yeah.
Illinois, I think, or especially Washington D.C.
Yeah, I think California, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas probably know the best.
Right. And that's kind of how I feel about it, right? Like, why don't a lot of this kind of stuff to me falls on proximity. Who are we to say what anything is like?
And what was it? I believe it was Arizona. I mean, yeah, they had some failures of their own. Like, they're like when police could question anyone that appeared to be an illegal immigrant, and it's like, okay, well, how does someone appear to be? An illegal immigrant? Are they brown? Speaking Spanish? Because that's a lot of people in too. Arizona.
Yeah, well,
and most of them are Americans. So
yeah, a lot of cans of worms there. But wasn't that by like something that came from that like super shitty sheriff out there?
I think so.
Joe Arpaio,
I don't know if that was an actual policy or if that was an idea, because I don't live in Arizona, so I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
I'm not on a border state. I'm on a Gulf state.
Yeah. So. I feel like I heard about it being done, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe people that will listen to it will comment and tell us how dumb we are for not having known it. I feel like I read stories.
They're going to tell us how dumb we are, but it's not going to be about the things that we want them to.
I know.
They're not going to clarify any laws that we may have misunderstood. They're going to be like, the border, it's got to come down now.
No, it's funny. Whenever people leave comments, it's always something like, you know what? I didn't listen to it all, but it doesn't need to be an hour long. Well, how do you know? I just skimmed it. It's bullshit. It doesn't need to be an hour long. All right, fine. Gosh.
No, they're going to be mad that you had some former faith healer on your podcast.
That was an interesting discussion. I don't care what they're mad about. That's fun stuff to talk about. It's interesting to me, at least.
Do like a whole hour of just Amos just talking about, him just talking.
Yeah, we'll put like an Enya sound bed underneath the episode. That'll be good. I don't like it a lot. When was the last time you guys went to the websites? I say websites. Now we got a couple websites, right? We got Being Libertarian, Rational Standard, Think Liberty. When was the last time you guys checked those out?
Wait, we have websites?
I checked.
Yeah. I got a few.
I checked out. Yes, and Vinny is very proud of them. But
I built them all.
I checked out.
Not the Rational Standard.
I checked out Rational Standard because I hadn't heard of them until the merger.
Yeah, that's the one website I didn't build.
Yeah. I mean, they're good.
Yeah, they're good.
Everyone should listen. Everyone should go and check them out and click on everything they can.
Yeah, go and check them out. It's funny. So you go to Being Libertarian,
go buy things off of the ads.
Yes,
you see
do
the
that.
website.
Click on ads and go buy things. If you go to beinglibertarian.com right now, front and center right there, we've got misconceptions of the libertarian view of abortion.
Wow.
Written by Nathan Creeder. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right.
That is a title.
It is a title. I feel whenever you bring up abortion, it's always like, dun, dun, dun.
Would you say that the libertarian movement as a whole, libertarianism as a whole, has two views on it?
Well, in this article,
we're divided on it.
In this article, he certainly makes the case that they are divided on it. In this article, he pretty much states that there are pro-choice libertarians, there are pro-life libertarians, and then there's kind of like, I'm personally pro-life, but politically it's none of my business libertarians.
That's kind of where I am.
The last
I'm in none of those categories. I am a pro-innovation, pro-progress, pro-making abortion obsolete libertarian. I want to let science take control and build like artificial wombs and better forms of birth control and things like that to make it just a non-issue. You know, to where you don't even have to worry about getting pregnant, and in that process you don't have to worry about your hormones getting thrown off completely, or whatever other harmful things can happen with some birth controls. You don't have to make these choices that no one wants to make.
Right.
These life choices. I mean, just make the whole procedure obsolete. If the artificial womb kind of thing, if you were to have an unplanned pregnancy, the process would be similar to an abortion, except where, the fetus would be safely removed and placed into some sort of, I don't know, some incubator type object, or I would like to see it advance far enough to where it could be placed into another host body. I mean, that's some sci-fi channel crazy talk there, but I mean, we won't get there until we start trying to make these kind of things happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, whatever the case, it's wherever you land on it. If you make it illegal, in any kind of sense, you're going to make a lot of new criminals. The thing is that when you observe this, it doesn't matter how strong your moral arguments are, right? You can say until you're blue in the face, well, people should just be responsible. That doesn't mean that they're going to. It clearly happens anyway.
People aren't responsible.
Yeah, they're just
current
not.
State of the world. For example, the reason why we need borders and all this other stuff is because people are not responsible.
Right.
They just aren't.
Yeah.
Look at everything that's wrong. It's because of people not being responsible.
Human nature is very irresponsible.
Exactly. So you can't expect people to be abstinent. You can't expect everyone to be on some sort of birth control or something like that, 'cause some people don't want it.
Well, and this is a lot. This is a lot like the drug war argument. To be honest, like a lot of the same arguments that get used in the drug war are actually pretty relevant to the abortion debate. To where it's like, look, just as much as no one wants to hear about a baby dying, right? Like I would argue that no one is trying to hear about that. No one likes that.
No.
At the same time, when you go and make something illegal, you're going to raise the danger of that thing, right? It's like when people talk about...
You just create a black market.
Yeah, and like people talk about drugs, right? And so if drugs are legal, then there's like kind of like a market competition, and people are going to be trying to make drugs as clean, for lack of a better term, as they can, because I think it's human nature that you want the best product you can get, right? Why else would like something like Apple exist that can charge a whole bunch of money for something that just... as they say, works better. It works the same way. That's why I said "as they say." Okay, but it's the same way, right? Like people are always going to want to premium something, as long as you can say like, "Hey, you got a Volvo, right?" Like for years and years, they made like the world's ugliest cars, but it didn't matter because they have this crazy statistic that's like, man, this crazy percentage of Volvos, everyone survives in even the worst car accidents, and people are like, well, I really care about my family, so I'm going to go and get that car. So there's definitely people care about the quality of things when it comes to how it affects their person. And I think this is the same when it comes to the abortion topic, is the minute you make it illegal, you can expect to see more back alley, for lack of a better term, right? Shady situations going down, because there's still going to be a market for it. People are still going to get it done. They're just going to be doing it in less sanitary, less legitimate ways. Probably ones that are much more dangerous to the people that are having to deal with the procedure.
Yeah, I mean, like with any.
Wait,
I'm sorry. Go.
I was about to say abstinence is 100% effective.
I feel like I'm in school all over again.
I mean, it is, but
it's also wildly unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean, with with a freer market on this kind of stuff, with more openness to innovation, things like that. I mean, that lets science create better procedures. Yeah. And with that, you build a new process that, well, now you don't need to get an abortion anymore because you didn't have to worry about getting pregnant in the first place, but you're not sterilized or something if that's not what you want.
Yeah. And it's, also something that people should consider that they don't is some of the social repercussions that come with some of this stuff, and I don't think people often really think about this kind of thing. You see it with like the UBI stuff. People talk a lot about like, oh, why don't you just give people money? What's the worst that could happen? Well, there's an incentive problem. That's the worst that can happen. When people don't have an incentive to work, you're going to have a bit of an issue. And that comes with any kind of handout. It's obviously going to be something that people are concerned about because getting something for free clearly eliminates the incentive. To push yourself, right? In a lot of instances, and with this, it's.
I kind of, I don't know. I don't want to. Let me let you finish.
Oh,
let me let you finish.
Sure. I was almost just about there. I was just going to say, one of the things here that people don't consider is that when you don't have a choice, when a lot of people when they don't have a choice, and you take someone that doesn't want a child, but now they have one, and they're forced to raise it, that there are probably better parents that exist in the world than the ones that have a kid that they don't want, that they are now forced to try and raise. And I guess it's something that it is ugly to think about, but maybe serious to consider, is at what point does, the burden of the family become a burden of the society? Right. And if parents aren't doing the best at raising their children, what do those children turn into? And what effect on the society does what those children turned into have? It's an interesting question, I suppose. But you go ahead. You were gonna say something there.
No, I was gonna say something about the incentive kind of thing. Like
sure.
The way welfare is currently structured, it's in a way to kind of like keep people in their spots, because if they make any more money, then they lose that, and the math may not work out initially, where you're getting, let's say, $500 and you're making $500. But if you make $600, you lose $300. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like
so you make less money. So people get kind of trapped in that.
It's like the Kamala Harris
kind of think some of the arguments with the UBIs is that it doesn't necessarily go away if you make more money. That maybe past a certain point, much further past, I guess you would lose it. But I don't know. I don't see UBI as having an incentive problem. I think if you look at it in a welfare kind of aspect,
I think it just has more to do with the
I don't
idea
like UBI,
of.
but
I understand.
I don't agree with the incentive argument.
I think it's a legitimate argument. I do think it's a legitimate argument. Is why would people?
Well, everyone wants more money.
This is accurate. Another interesting thing about UBI, right, is it's universal, and it's just curious to me. The same people that are like, why does
Kanye West need an extra $1,500 a month?
Right. There's a wealth gap, but millionaires need $2,000 a month guaranteed.
Right.
That's always been interesting to me. But yeah. I mean, it was just kind of, I guess, I was just using it as an example to talk about something that it's a detail that normally hides behind the topic. And I say that as saying, like, because it's an intangible, right? Like, it's hard to say, oh, well, this clearly happens when this happens. It's just kind of something that you like observe that people do. So people talk about the abortion topic a lot, but they never really kind of talk about the effects of families raising children that they don't really want. and what that does to a community. Yeah,
Right.
another one of those intangibles, right? It's hard to quantify. There's an interesting study that was done by Stephen Dubner. I think, what was it, Dubner or was it Levitt? It was one of the Freakonomics guys. One of the Freakonomics guys did a study tracing crime rates to the legalization of abortion. I will link it in the show notes. It's a fascinating read, and it's very interesting indeed. Sorry, Amos, you can go ahead.
So you're basically saying, so was it correlating the abortion with preventing crime because you don't have essentially bad citizens coming into the world?
Basically, I wouldn't say bad citizens coming into the world. I don't think they come into the world as bad citizens.
There would be less of an opportunity to create a bad citizen through less of an economic burden on the person bearing the child.
Yeah,
it gets a little tricky when you think about it.
I think that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't. I appreciate the study for the data that it provides, but I don't like the direction that a lot of people take that information.
Sure.
For example, I mean, you can look at two different intentions entirely, but Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger and they kind of set it all up in the hood, because
right,
there was a certain kind of people that they did not like and they wanted less of. And, I know that this study was done with a completely different intention, but I do think that can kind of fuel bad policy.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think talks about
data
this?
is data.
Yeah. You can. It's good to read all these arguments, right? Go listen to what Dinesh D'Souza has to say about Sanger. He's a real big fan of hers, and he's a real big fan of Planned Parenthood. And then go read this study, right? And it doesn't mean you have to agree with either one, but it's really important to arm yourself with information from people that have studied these topics extensively, and to see where they've come out with it. I think there's good information on both sides of that discussion that can give you a lot to think about and a lot to chew on the topic. That's for sure. I mean, you talk about the Dinesh D'Souza kind of Margaret Sanger, like the stuff that you were talking about, Lonnie, and I think that's very valid, right? Like, you have most of these instances of Planned Parenthood being set up in places where you start to question, like, whoa, is this a little bit of social engineering? Right? Like the density of where these kind of places go and the percentages of where these places happen. And you have to kind of step back at a certain point and look at, like, whoa, like, you're really kind of preventing a certain group of people from having more kids and reproducing. Right. And that seems a little creepy.
When I was younger, I worked for a construction company and we did commercial jobs. And we did a lot of work for the various housing authorities that were around. And at all of the offices, there was, you go to, I don't know what exactly you do at a housing authority offices, I guess apply or whatever, but there's also tons of information on birth controls and those cookie jars of condoms and stuff like that. And, it's kind of like,
what are you trying to say?
If we're being honest here, in the United States, the majority of people that end up in the projects are black, or they're Mexican or Puerto Rican, or whatever. They're a minority of white people that end up in the projects. No, I'm just saying. So then you have this, and then they're clearly placing all of this stuff, and it's like, we want less of you. That's the message that I was getting whenever I was seeing that, and I was like, this is a little disgusting here, I mean, some people might see it as, it's less of an economic burden on society and blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, but, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know.
No, basically,
it always left me with an uneasy feeling whenever I would see stuff like that.
Look, social engineering is very uncomfortable. Like, you know, and this is really, like, you're really, when you're talking about suppressing the ability of a certain demographic to reproduce, that's you know, that's about as intense as social engineering gets.
Right. I mean, you know, you don't see, you know, people that own trailer parks putting out like, you know, no, we want less white people, less rednecks around. So we're going to put out box condoms, just at the front doors.
Yeah.
We're going to have free condom deliveries at every tenant, you know. I don't know. It's a tough topic. You know, like you said, you got that on the one side, and then you got the other side. You got this economic study, which I call it an economic study because it was done by economists, but it's really a crime study. You know, there was a rise in crime, a rise in crime, a rise in crime. It was just getting worse. No one knew what was going to happen or how to stop it. Roe vs. Wade. A little bit later, boom, crime plummets. They make a lot of good cases. They don't. Yeah, because I remember seeing it because I watched Freakonomics, the documentary, and they covered that. Yeah, and it was a very, very interesting study.
They make compelling arguments,
and the data was there.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's not bulletproof. It's certainly not. You know, it's not like unequivocal. It's not like, oh well, this is certainly what led to that. But they do present some convincing data, or at least interesting.
Yeah, there definitely was. There definitely was a correlation there.
Yeah.
You know, and data, like I said, data is data. It's all it is, and what you take from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I don't trust people to take the right.
Well, maybe like there's a middle ground somewhere, right? Like maybe it's better to be like, look, maybe it shouldn't be illegal, but at the same time, let's not go out of our way to steal money from people in order to set up abortion clinics in places where it might be beneficial to some other people, that we make sure we're limiting the numbers of reproduction.
Right. Yeah, it's and I think that's what you see a lot of. And that's very, very, very unfortunate. At the same time, you know, you don't want a poor family being burdened with 6, 7, 8 kids or whatever because they can't prevent it. But
and then it falls back to the, you know, and then you just slide right back into that discussion. Well, they should be more responsible. They're not going to.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
Because people just aren't responsible. That's just, it's not in human nature. But then, you know, you have the kind of, you know, the people that look at that and they're like, oh, well, they are irresponsible, so they need all this kind of stuff so that we don't have to pay for it. And it's like, that's not what I wanted to hear. I've heard that before too, and it's like, this whole thing is just messed up.
So basically, we need to privatize abortion clinics so they can be everywhere.
Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, privatizing stuff is certainly a lot better than.
But see, now,
you know,
if you
using
allow
the
market
state
forces,
and taking taxes.
If you allow market forces to operate the way they operate, would you get the same thing?
I doubt it. I doubt it because you wouldn't see them in poorer neighborhoods because poorer neighborhoods couldn't afford them.
But wouldn't they be made possibly more affordable due to, you know, the markets might allow, you know, they might have, you know, abortions are us, as to quote a certain libertarian, something are us. That's just, you know, your chain.
My God, if he would have said abortions are us, like
Mick abortions. Oh boy.
Yeah, if you actually had an abortions are us just in the middle of a poor neighborhood that's doing like, you know, 2 for $1, buy one get one free.
Yeah, punch card.
Every 10th abortion is free.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if you'd see kind of the same things. Because like I said, I mean, there's a market for everything, but not every market can afford the product or service. So, so without the public funding, I don't know if you'd see these everywhere and in some of the places that they are. They would be present, but I don't think they'd be as common.
How would you advertise that on TV?
I would hope that you wouldn't.
You hump them, we dump them. Sorry. I'm sorry for that, everybody.
Like how they have those. Oh, never mind. I'm not even going to do this. Never mind.
I'm just thinking now.
Going to lose all our listeners if I continue with this joke. So
for the listeners, I am totally late to the party here, but I just finished watching Breaking Bad for the first time, and I'm just thinking Better Call Saul and his billboard, like imagining something like that, but with abortions. I don't know.
What a world. What a world. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a good enough note to close it up on. All right. This is a good episode. We covered religion, borders, and abortion. Fun. Good times. All right. Well,
I can't wait for the comment section.
Yeah. If this doesn't get us some feedback, I don't know what will. All right. Well, on behalf of my guests today, thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen. And on behalf of myself, thank you to the guests for joining on this podcast episode where we may have just about triggered everybody. And whether or not anyone likes it, we will probably be back again.